Hello, I'm Rachel Matthews from Successful Garden Design, and I've been an international garden designer for over 30 years, designing gardens all over the world. But I also teach garden design to homeowners. Now, in the last segment, we looked at the foundational level of garden design, the three things that it's really important that you do before you put pencil to paper and start designing your garden. In this segment, we're going to go through the formational three things that you need to do. And we're going to look at a very simple design formula that I've created that enables anyone to design any size, shape or style of garden. Now, the Shape First system, as I have called it, is very counterintuitive. And it helps you avoid the number one mistake that virtually everyone makes with their garden. And that is designing with things, like features, like a pond or a pergola, and the planting. People always home in on what they want without thinking about the structure and the layout. And that is the most vital and important part of garden design, the overall shape and layout. So before you start designing with all your wish list of I want a pond, a pergola, etc., you need to look at what the garden wants. That's why it's counterintuitive. So what do I mean by what the garden wants? Well, if your garden is very long and narrow, you need to put design shapes in that will make it look wider. You don't want to accentuate the length. Now, if you think of the average back garden, especially a few decades ago, they'd be all long and narrow, and then someone would put a long, narrow path down the middle of it, which just accentuated the length and the skinniness. And then you'd also, to make matters worse, you'd have a thin strip of lawn either side of said path. Nothing is going to make a long garden look longer and skinnier than a path straight down the middle of it. So what you would do in that instance is to actually use shapes which draw your eye from side to side and not go straight down the middle, which actually takes you on to the next step on our pathway to creating a gorgeous garden, and that is movement. Just like with a story, if you know what happens at the end, it's very boring, isn't it? There's no point in reading the story. The same actually applies to a garden. Part of what adds interest is the visual movement. So having features that draw the eye from one side of the garden to the other, and when combined with the right shape, that is what creates interest. You don't want to see the entire garden in one go, even if it needs to be open. So if you've got children that need to kick a ball and need a big open space of lawn, you can still pinch in the planting borders here and there to create interest. So when I'm designing a garden with the Shape First system, I start designing the empty areas of space first, so the lawn and patio areas, and then the areas that are left are where I put the plants. And I choose shapes that are going to enhance the garden. So if you've got a very wide garden that's shallow, you want to use shapes that make that look longer. And if you've got an awkward shaped garden, again, you want to be hiding those awkward angles. And you can do an awful lot with your lawn and patio shapes and then disguise the awkward angle with planting. Once you've got the design shape that suits the garden, that's when you start putting in your features. You work out where the shed should go, or a gazebo, or your pond, etc. So as I say, this is very counterintuitive, but that's one of the reasons why so few people have a gorgeous garden. It doesn't matter how much money you spend on plants and features and the most gorgeous materials, unless you have a good design layout, you will never achieve a really gorgeous garden that looks good all year round. Now, if you get the right shapes and the right structure, even during the winter months, your garden will still look good. And the principles of design do not change no matter where you are in the world. The only things that change with your location is the materials that are available and suitable, and also the plants. So the last step in our formational level is actually choosing the right materials. Now, again, a mistake a lot of people will make is that they will try and cram in lots of different surfaces and textures. Less really is more when it comes to good design. I try not to use more than about 3 different hard landscaping materials. So, for example, I might have natural stone in the patio area, and if I've used a curve-shaped patio, you want to make sure that the little tiny cuts of paving don't easily get knocked out. So I'll often put a brick edge around that paving. So then my third material may well be gravel or large cobbles. So I try to keep things as simple as possible. Garden design is not a pick and mix. You don't want a million and one things competing for your attention. So to recap, the foundational level was surveying and getting a plan to scale so that you can do your design. Then our formational level, you do the shape first system, which is a counterintuitive method to make sure you're making the most of your available space. So if you've got a small garden, you make sure it looks larger and you work with the size and shape and style of garden that you want to achieve. Then we create interest with movement by putting features in that will help draw the eye from one side of your garden to the other, so that you don't get to the end of the story before you've started. You want to have a visual journey around your garden. And then finally, you work out which materials that you're going to choose, and that will come down to the style of garden you wish to create, whether it be modern, rustic, natural, or traditional, etc. So the more modern and contemporary you want the garden to look, the straighter, the harder the lines. The more rustic you want it to look, the more lumpy-bumpy the materials you choose are. Yes, that is a technical term designers use. Well, I do. In the final segment of this series, we'll look at the finishing touches. So that's going to be your plants and your features. But if you can't wait until the next segment, do head on over to successfulgardendesigner.com/free-classes where you can attend one of my free garden design workshops. So until next time, take care.